So what we're going to do right now is we're going to begin our preview of the Harry video. So this is going to be a demonstration of a single case reversal design and what I like to call a sloppy multiple baseline across behavior design, and I'll mention that during the video. But this is treating a patient with self-injurious behavior. So this is the video, Harry. It's a treatment of a self-injurious individual, and I will pause it occasionally to illustrate some of these single subject designs. All right, so that's him biting himself. That is him slamming his fist into his head and into his leg. And that's Harry smashing his face into his knees.
Self-abusive behavior is not a pretty sight. As a psychologist, much of my work involves developing behaviorally based treatment and research programs to deal with such aberrant behaviors. In this film, you will see the use of one of these programs to treat Harry, the young man you just saw self-abusing. Harry is a 6'6" self-abusive man who resided in the Northern Virginia Training Center in Fairfax, Virginia.
All right, so he's 2 inches taller than I am. So you can imagine, he's a sizable individual.
Although Harry was only mildly retarded, he had been institutionalized for most of his 24 years because of his extreme self-abuse. Harry's self-abuse had begun when he was an infant. In fact, his mother recalls placing cardboard mailing tubes over his arms to prevent him from striking his face with his fists. As he grew older and stronger, his parents reluctantly institutionalized him so that he could receive treatment for his self-abuse. Harry's primary form of self-abuse was to smash his face, particularly his nose, with his fist or his knee. Over the years, these repeated blows had left his nose permanently disfigured. He also abused himself by biting, hitting his head and thighs with his fist, and picking at his skin until it bled. Unfortunately, none of the several institutions that had treated Harry were very successful in their attempts to eliminate his self-abuse. The only way they had found to manage Harry's self-abuse was to restrain his arms and sometimes to place a mask over his face.
You want your nose restrained?
Yeah. All right. Over the years, Harry had worn a variety of restraints, including a straitjacket. Harry was wearing the arm restraints when the Northern Virginia Training Center asked me to develop a program to eliminate his self-abuse and the arm restraints. Everyone agreed that the restraints had to be eliminated because they reduced circulation in Harry's arms, called attention to him during trips into the community because of their bizarre appearance, and most importantly, because they appeared to be reinforcing for Harry.
That's right. I'm going to finish showing for you taking training. That's very nice manners. Very nice. I said, no, please. I'm doing nothing.
He was very calm when he wore the restraints and would become highly agitated when they were removed.
Now I'm eating without any restraints on. Report, Gary. Pick up your report, Gary. Pick up your report.
It would be difficult for us to eliminate Harry's self-abuse and the restraints. There were several reasons why. First, Harry had a long history of using his self-abuse to control others so that they would place no demands on him. For example, he would begin self-abusing when he was asked to participate in an educational activity. Second, over the years, the restraints had acquired very powerful reinforcing qualities for Harry, such that he insisted on wearing them continuously. Finally, at 6'6", he used his size to intimidate people so that they were reluctant to treat his self-abuse, take away his restraints, or require him to participate in activities. Most of the time, Harry sat in the TV room, wearing his restraints and gazing in his face. If he was asked a question, he would look downward and mumble something. If he was pressed, he would begin self-abusing.
All right, so those were the characteristics that they assessed for Harry. So he had a history of using his self-abuse to control others. He actually was reinforced by the wearing of his restraints. He preferred to be in restraints rather than out of restraints. And then lastly, he was 6'6", and he would use his size to intimidate others. So, and he's a self-abusive individual. You take all four of those characteristics, and it is highly unlikely that you are ever going to run into another individual that is like Harry. It's highly unlikely that somebody else is going to match all those characteristics. And as we're going to see, Dr. Fox is going to design a program specifically for Harry to take advantage of the fact that Harry finds his restraints reinforcing. And when he designs that treatment, it's designed specifically for Harry. He can't wait for 19 other subjects who are like Harry to show up at his door in order to run a full-fledged experiment. It has to be a small subject design. In this case, a single subject design.
In essence, Harry had become extremely non-compliant over the course of his institutionalization. As a result, Harry's non-compliance was an even greater problem than his self-abuse and his reliance on the restraints, since they were only the means by which he displayed his non-compliance and thereby controlled others. Even when Harry wore hinge restraints that allowed him to move his arms freely, he would not self-abuse unless he wished to escape an activity or a social interaction. Consequently, Harry was left alone except for 1/2 hour each day when he was required to shower and exercise his arms. Clearly, Harry was making no progress, educationally or socially, and in fact, he was slipping backwards. Our goal was to eliminate Harry's self-abuse and the restraints so that it would be possible to teach him the skills that might permit him to be placed in the community, such as in a group home. Perhaps the biggest obstacle was the reinforcing power of the restraints. With that in mind, we designed a program in which the restraints would be used to reinforce the absence of self-abuse. In other words, the restraints would be taken away from Harry, and he would have to earn them back by not self-abusing while he was out of those restraints. Now, this procedure had been used with success by Judy Fable at the Western Carolina Center. However, in addition to using the restraints as reinforcers, we also needed a negative consequence if Harry did self-abuse. We designed our treatment plan with 3 levels of negative consequences according to the least restrictive model of treatment. Our level 1 treatment program used a timeout procedure from restraints if Harry self-abused. If the timeout was unsuccessful, we would go to level 2, in which we would physically restrain Harry's entire body as a negative consequence. If that failed, our level 3 plan would consist of brief contingent electric shock delivered to Harry's arms for self-abusing.
All right, so that's the treatment program that Dr. Fox designed specifically for Harry. So this treatment program is that they are going to take away Harry's restraints, and Harry is going to have to perform certain behaviors without self-abusing to earn those restraints back, to get those restraints returned to Harry. And then if Harry does self-abuse, the first level of consequences is that they're going to remove the restraints for 5 minutes out of the room. Second level of consequence is that they're going to restrict his entire body from moving. Third level is they're going to apply brief contingent electric shocks to Harry's arms. So that's the treatment program. And that treatment program was designed specifically for Harry. That treatment program took advantage of the fact that Harry found his restraints to be reinforcing. So think about it for yourselves. You know, usually restraint is a punishment, right? So you take a look at police officers. You know, they might say, you know, if you don't calm down, if you continue to be unruly, I'm going to put you in handcuffs, right? Literally, I'm going to punish you with restraints. Not if, you know, ma'am, if you continue to be belligerent, I'm going to take those handcuffs off. So you better be good, because otherwise I'm going to take those handcuffs off. Nobody thinks of taking the restraints away as a punishment. However, for Harry it was. So they developed this treatment program specifically for Harry, and now they have to decide or determine, is it effective? Is it actually effective? If we see a decrease in self-abusive behavior, is it effective? Is it the treatment that's causing the change? In which case, they can then instruct the caregivers, they can instruct the parents, do this treatment with Harry and it'll continue to work, versus if the treatment is not effective, they need to know that as well.
Because our treatment program contained these aversive consequences, and because Harry would be allowed to self-abuse during the program, we submitted a written proposal to the institution's Human Rights and Restricted Procedures Committee, to its superintendent, and to Harry's parents. At the committee's meeting, which Harry's mother attended, we showed a videotape of his self-abuse and his non-compliant behavior. After receiving everyone's approval, we submitted our program to the State Department of Mental Retardation. Having obtained their approval, we were ready to begin the treatment. We began by conducting 6 5-minute baseline sessions with Harry out of restraints. The sessions were kept brief because there were no consequences for self-abuse. In the baseline, we measured Harry's level of self-abuse across a variety of conditions.
Very good. Everybody down. Very good.
Okay, so this is a baseline session. And what that is Harry is not being treated in this session. There's no consequences for self-abuse. There's no earning back the restraints or anything like that. This is just a baseline session. And what they're doing is they're recording how often Harry self-abuses. And this will be the level at which they're going to compare their treatment to. So this is Harry out of restraints, abusing at a certain level, and they're going to see if their treatment causes a reduction in the amount of abuse while Harry is out of restraints. But the only way to notice that reduction is to first see how bad or how severe the behavior is.
Very good. Very good. Sit down, Harry.
You're looking at Harry in a small treatment room through a one-way vision mirror. This room was selected because it gave us better control over Harry's behavior, reduced the possibility that someone might be injured, and permitted us to videotape the sessions in order to accurately measure Harry's self-abuse and to determine inter-observer reliability. Most importantly, the mirror permitted anyone to drop by and observe the program. Harry's extremely agitated behavior, brought about by the absence of restraints, makes it impossible to work with him on an academic task. Harry is not aggressing towards us. Rather, he is attempting to restrain his hands and arms in our clothing. We are trying to pry his hands loose as gently as possible and keep pushing him away from us so that he will be unable to restrain in our clothing. Harry was left alone so that we could determine how much he would self-abuse when we began using the timeout procedure during the treatment program.
5 minutes. Last one. Run another one. All right, let's keep going. Take about 10 seconds now. Start again. Right got that.
The voices in the background are from the observation room, where recorders are measuring Harry's self-abuse during 5-second intervals of time. Harry continues to self-abuse despite the fact that he is eating a meal. Thus, a powerful reinforcer such as food is not sufficient to distract him from hitting himself. Note that Harry is self-restraining with his left arm by wrapping it in his shirt. This was the first time he self-restrained. Unfortunately, we will see a lot more of this self-restraint in the future. The brief baseline revealed that Harry had a high, stable rate of self-abuse across a variety of conditions. It also revealed that Harry's self-abuse, although quite severe, was not so dangerous so as to prevent us from proceeding with our treatment program.
Okay, so that observation right there. So they finished the baseline. He's got a high, stable rate of self-abuse. The second thing that they pointed out was that his self-abuse was not so dangerous that they could not allow him to self-abuse. The self-abuse was not so dangerous as to put himself in immediate danger. And as you can see, he didn't aggress against the other individuals. He tried to restrain themselves in their clothing, but he wasn't hitting them or doing anything like that. So they knew that they weren't in danger. So allowing Harry to self-abuse would not be dangerous for any party involved, or extremely dangerous for any party involved. And that allowed them to, number one, go through with their treatment. Number two, it allowed them to use a reversal design. So if they had determined that Harry's behavior was too dangerous to allow, it would be unethical for them to say, oh, let's remove the treatment and see if Harry's self-abuse goes back to baseline levels. They determined that while it needs to stop, it's not so dangerous that it would be permanently harmful. So they are then allowed to use a reversal design. Was the question?
Did they say why they tried to use food as a distraction?
They were just testing across a wide variety of situations. So one of the challenges in a treatment like this is you need to find something that's reinforcing. You need to find a reward that can be used to increase positive behaviors. And they, I think, wanted to test would food maybe be a potential reinforcer, and what they found was that clearly it wasn't. So you put Harry into restraints. Even if he was in hinged restraints where he could self-abuse, as long as he was in restraints, he wouldn't self-abuse. But even when he's eating a meal, he still would self-abuse. So it wasn't even enough to be eating food to distract him from that self-abuse. All right, so the baseline period is over, and let's see what is up next.
The design of our research and treatment program was to conduct this very brief baseline, then to implement the level 1 treatment, to return to baseline, and finally, the permanent implementation of the level 1 treatment program.
So what did he just describe there? That's the reversal design that he just described. So they started with a baseline. They were going to institute the level 1 treatment. Then they were going to follow it with a return to baseline. That would determine if it was the treatment that was effective in reducing Harry's behavior. And then if it was, then you permanently implement the treatment. If it was a treatment that's effective, then you basically tell the healthcare providers and the parents, look, put Harry under this treatment for the rest of his life. It'll decrease his self-abuse.
The initial baseline would allow us to measure the effectiveness of the treatment by comparing Harry's self-abuse during the baseline to his self-abuse during the treatment. And the return to baseline would establish scientifically that the treatment was causing the hoped-for decrease in Harry's self-abuse. The final return to treatment, of course, was where we wished to end up.
So that was a nice synopsis of the logic behind the reversal design.
The treatment began immediately following the final baseline session. Briefly, the program was as follows. We would select an activity that Harry could perform. Harry would be told as we removed his restraints that he could earn back his restraints following the activity. He was also told that if he hit himself at any time or refused to surrender the restraints, that we would leave the room with his restraints for 5 minutes. Our plan was to systematically increase the length of time that Harry spent out of restraints without self-abusing.
You understand? Now, as soon as we take the restraints off, I want you to...
All right, so this is treatment session 1. This is now when the treatment phase begins. So the baseline phase is done. Now they're actually implementing the treatment phase. The treatment is the consequences for self-abuse, the removing of the restraints out of the room, and the consequences for positive behavior, the earning back of restraints. That's the treatment, and they're going to implement it now during this treatment session.
Start counting to 100. No! You want us to walk out of the room with... You want us to walk out of the room with your restraints? You want us to take them away? No. Then you be quiet while we hold them. We'll keep them in the room and you can look out. Help me. Let's go. Yeah, right. You have it. You have it right now. Help me. Drive me. hands out of your pants and start counting to 100, and we'll give you the restraints back when you're finished counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Slow down. 1, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 50. 40, Gary. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47.
Counting to 100 was selected because we knew Harry could do it. He was not allowed to self-restrain by placing his arms in his pants. I required him to give me eye contact, be polite, and speak appropriately as a means of breaking down his non-compliant behavior and gaining instructional control over it. Furthermore, these behaviors are all socially appropriate ways of interacting with another person.
82, 83, 45, 86, 89, 90. 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. Take the restraint from him, and what do you say? What do you say? Thank you. Well, that's correct. 80, 92. What do you say? Going to you. What do you say? Thank you. That's right. You're welcome. You're doing fine, but I want you to sit up when you count this next 100, and I'm going to give you your restraints back. 1, 0. Sit up. 1, 0. Start counting. Sit up straight. Start counting. 1, 2, 3.
Harry continues to test us by rolling over and clenching his hands together while he is counting.
Slowly. Sit up.
To counter this move, I required him to sit up and count. Requiring Harry to count slowly gained us more time with him out of restraints and was a further establishment of our instructional control.
8.
We were gratified because Harry was remaining out of restraints without hitting himself, and his counting during the restraints indicated that they were indeed reinforcing, which meant we were on the right track.
96, 97, 98, 99, 100. All right, now what do you get? Restraint. How do you say it? I get out of restraint. Please. Please. Yes, you may. On to you. Here, if you whip yourself, keep your strength, but take them away. You understand? Yeah. I help you. What do you say? I'm not going to help you here. You can put it on yourself. Start counting. 1, 2, sit up straight. And sit up here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm 92, 93. Okay, stand up and play some ball. Would you like to play some ball instead of count? Yes. All right. Now we're going to play some ball instead of count. We're not. No!
All right, so we're going to pause there. So at this point, we've seen all outcomes of the treatment contingency. We've seen that if Harry does the task that he is given without self-abusing, he gets his restraints back. If he self-abuses during that time, or if he refuses to do the task, they remove the restraints out of the room for 5 minutes. So that is the essence of the treatment program. And what we're going to do next time is we're going to pick it up from that point, and we're going to see, number one, if this treatment is actually effective. So will this treatment decrease the amount of self-abuse that Harry is doing? And then more importantly, is it actually the treatment that is effective, or has something else happened to Harry that day that actually causes that decrease in self-abuse? So we're going to take a look at that next time.